Jesus said, "Two will rest on a couch. One will die, one will live." Salome said, "Who are you, man, that you have come up on my couch and eaten from my table?" Jesus said to her, "I am the one who comes from the one who is whole. I was given from the things of my Father." Salome said, "I am your disciple." Jesus said, "Therefore I say, if one is whole, one will be filled with light. But if one is divided, one will be filled with darkness." Friends, I would like to tell you a story based on these words from Christ from the Gospel of Thomas, saying 61. You ready? Mill River was the kind of small American town where time seemed to slow down around sunset. The golden light hit the old red brick buildings just right, and the smell of fresh coffee from Clara's Cafe drifted through the square. Everyone knew everyone. There was peace here, but lately, not for everyone. Inside Clara's, in the corner by the big bay window, sat the couch, a worn brown leather relic that had cradled decades of stories. People said that couch could tell you who you really were if you sat there long enough. That Friday afternoon, as rain ticked softly against the glass, Eli Cooper, the town's mechanic, sank into it with a heavy sigh. His hands were blackened from oil, but it was his heart that felt stained. His wife had left 3 months ago, taking their little boy with her. He prayed every night for something to change, but heaven had stayed silent. Moments later, Pastor James walked in, young, freshly out of the seminary, yet already weighed down by the burden of trying to keep faith alive in a town that was slowly giving up on church. His sermons had become mechanical. He knew it, and it haunted him. He spotted Eli and, without a word, sat beside him on the couch. 2 men, different stories, same emptiness. They sat watching the rain. The ticking of the old wall clock filled the quiet. Clara, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes and flour on her apron, set 2 steaming mugs of coffee before them. "You two look like a pair of ghosts," she said with a small smile. "My grandma used to say that couch separates the living from the ones just breathing." Eli smirked. "Guess that makes us the latter." Clara tilted her head. "Doesn't have to." She walked back to the counter, humming a hymn. The minutes passed. The rain softened. Pastor James finally said, "You ever wonder if God's just done listening?" Eli stared at his reflection in the window. "Every day, I keep praying, but nothing changes. Feels like I'm talking to myself." The pastor nodded. "I preach about faith every Sunday, but lately, I don't even know what it feels like anymore." Just then, the door opened with a soft chime. Miss Salome Jenkins, or Miss Sally to everyone, entered, shaking the rain off her coat. She was a retired nurse, wise in the ways life taught you when books couldn't. Her eyes held both compassion and a quiet authority. "2 sad faces on one couch," she said, smiling knowingly. Reminds me of something Jesus said. 2 will rest on a couch. 1 will die. 1 will live. Eli blinked. That's a strange thing to say, Miss Sally. She sat across from them. Strange? Maybe. But he wasn't talking about bodies, boys. He was talking about the soul. One man lets his heart die, buried under guilt, fear, and pride. The other lets light in and learns to live again. Pastor James leaned forward. And how does one do that? Miss Sally folded her hands. By being whole. By stop pretending. Too many folks walk around divided. One person in public, another in private. One man for church, another at home. But Jesus said the one who is whole will be filled with light. You can't live in pieces and expect to shine. Well, the cafe fell silent. The rain had stopped. Sunlight spilled in through the window, catching the raindrops still clinging to the glass and scattering them like little stars. Eli looked down at his calloused hands. I've been fixing everything but myself, he said. Maybe that's what's been dying. The pastor nodded. And I've been speaking about light while standing in the dark. Miss Sally smiled softly. Then it sounds like today both of you decided to live again. When they stepped outside, the clouds had parted. The whole town seemed bathed in light. The air smelled like rain and renewal. Eli turned to Pastor James and said, You think maybe that old couch really does something to people? Pastor James looked up at the sky and smiled. No, but the one who sits beside us when we rest there does. You know, friends, the saying of Jesus reminds us that 2 people can share the same space, the same sorrow, even the same faith, and yet only one will truly live. To be whole is to be undivided, to love, forgive, and believe with a single heart. When we stop living in fragments and invite Christ to make us whole, the darkness fades, and His light fills every corner of who we are. God bless you, my friends.